Springtime sees a whole host of young people head south and invade Florida. The sunshine, the beaches, and the beautiful weather draws the spring breakers in droves. But it attracts a whole different sort of person as well, because springtime also means Sebring for race fans. So fittingly, iRacing's vintage sports car racing community has elected to kick things off at this iconic track. We'll see who will bask in the glory of a win as we get ready to watch round one of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sam, this is a slightly different Sebring than what IMSA ran in '89, but these cars will still feel right at home. Tell us about the track they're taking on.
Yeah, any classic car on iRacing will always feel right at home at Sebring, Joe, because the track feels so old. It's just so bumpy. Part airport, part infield course really is what this track has been built up on. And it is not a small track by any stretch of the imagination. At 3.7 miles, that's just a tick under 6 kilometers in length. Only 17 turns. It feels like a heck of a lot more of that. Even if it is a bit of a sprint race today, they're just going to be racing here for 40 minutes today. Give you an idea of just how bumpy the circuit is. Let's go on board our GSRC lap guide with the Nissan.
All right, we've got Clayton McLeod in the GSRC Nissan, so let's do a lap around Sebring. Turn 1 tends to be a good passing spot in most cars, but in the Nissan, this thing is terrifying. You carry a ton of speed through here, but just pray that the bumps don't unsettle the car. Keep on hugging the right side on the short run down to turn 3. There's a late apex here, but make sure not to clip the inside curb. From there, you're right into 4 and 5. Once again, turning in late is the desirable line through 5. But here you've got to try and get the power down quickly. Big Bend and the blast towards the hairpin are flat out the whole way. This will probably be the most popular overtaking spot since it's a long acceleration zone into a very heavy braking zone. Just be careful when surrounded by other cars because it'll be easy to overshoot and plow into someone ahead of you. What's really tricky is trying not to spin the car out as the turbo kicks in. Turns 8 and 9 are simply about lessening your steering input to keep your speed up. And then comes another good place to attempt to pass, Cunningham. But if you find yourself side by side coming off the corner, it can be bad news. Collier is narrow with very little runoff on either side. Then there's the difficult curved braking for Tower. This is another inside curve that I highly advise not mounting. At last, there's a little breather until you have to attack Bishop. Take this as a single arc even though there's 2 apexes. On exit, make sure and stay to the left for the best entry into Jean de Bien. There's paved runoff, but getting to slow down here can really hurt you. And it's critically important to get a good run off of Le Mans anyway. Once you get dumped onto the Ullman Straight, it's a long ways until sunset. Even though the draft isn't as effective in the Nissan, getting a bad run might mean finding yourself too wide into the corner, and that is going to be extra scary. Just look at how much speed you take into the kink. Manage the car over the bumps and then smoothly bring the power back in. This brings us back onto the front stretch to start it all over again. Hopefully you kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Sebring. How many bumps there are and how low slung that Nissan is, I'm sure there's going to be a few spins throughout the day in either class. But as qualifying works its way towards the first time laps, why don't we take a moment to look at last season's championship, this being round 1 of season 2. Starting with the GTP driver standings, of course, Keith Ritchie came away with it all as he finished about just a few 37 points over Ante Lopisto. Very small in terms of points in championships like this. Jamie Hall was much farther back in third, and then you can see Olenek and Iamaki rounded out the top 5. What about the Audis, though, Sam? It's they had not as many drivers competing over in that one, I understand.
No, perhaps not, but we'll take a look at how things panned out here. By the time it was all said and done, a massive 64 points between our champion there of Villerola, ahead of Ove Trantere, and then Michael Houghton gained a position in that last race of the season to move up to 3rd in the points ahead of Ben Laughter. But those 4 far and away miles ahead of 5th in the points, Brian Shanahan. But things could be a bit closer this season, Joe, considering the fact they have changed how they're going to pay out points during this year.
Exactly. Why don't we take a look at that, since we've got just a little bit of time before those first laps start tumbling in. Like I said, round one. Now this time, only 2 drops that they are allowing. And just like last season, it's 40-minute races. They do have a couple endurance races that are 60 minutes. So no stops for fuel expected, because these cars are open setup in these sprint races. Now the scoring, you can see the scoring is a little bit different. And what else is interesting, before they counted all the races taking part during the week. Now it is only these races at this time slot broadcast by GSRC. So the pressure is on to perform, even though before you could get away with a few mistakes, both through the drop weeks and the fact that if you get a high strength of field in one of the other races, you could maybe come back. But as the Nissans get their first times in, looks like Ian Maki at the top of the board, at least for now.
Yeah, only 3 drivers have actually now they're rolling in 5, 6 cars. They're all putting in their first of 2 laps. The reason it's taken over 4 minutes to get these first laps to come in is because it is such a large track. Everyone has the track to themselves for 8 minutes, where they get to do 2 time laps after setting an out lap. Fortunately, if you don't have any internet connection issues, you're able to start the qualifying session on time. There's still plenty of time for everyone to get their 2 laps in. But if you do crash midway during your qualifying run, or Windows is installing updates at the start of the session, you might have to start from the rear of the field.
So, we saw momentarily on screen, Jody Hagner has come to the top of the times in the GTO class. And no surprise as well, alongside him, Brian Strodbeck going to be on the front row there. So glad to see those 2 Titans back and going at it. You see Marco Kika gets himself into 5th. How about Philip Lake, though? His first lap gets him into 4th. He's doing a nice job in the Audis yet again. We were a bit surprised to see him last time, but apparently that's what he started in, now having switched back from the Nissan to the slower class, and seems to handle these 4-wheel drive machines quite well. Right now at the top of the Nissans, we missed it, Juan Lopez goes to the top and overtakes Ardo Yamaki. Juan, not a regular in this series from what we've seen on the broadcast before.
Yeah, and it will be interesting when we get all of these qualifying times pulled up on screen. Even though they're very close at the top of the timesheets, we have 5 cars within a second, which is, when you're talking about oval racing at Bristol, that will sound like not a whole lot, but when you're talking about a very challenging 2-minute long racetrack, for 5 cars to be within a second is quite close. But we have just one single split of 39 cars going on right now. So I have a feeling, even though it's just a 40-minute race, lap traffic will be a factor during this race because of the different levels of experience that are represented throughout this field.
Well, and that experience comes with another twist, because apparently there's a lot of, as the drivers are calling it in the chat, aliens coming in. It's a iRacing term, if you're not familiar, for a fast driver. Juan E. Lopez being one of those. And just to show you how fast the people we have in here, Keith Ritchie was only 4th in his first lap, and now 3rd at best. He's waiting for the rest of the drivers to come around to see if he'll start on the 2nd row even. Jamie Hall going to be starting 5th. John Keefe currently in 9th. He's actually don't think he's going to be able to complete another lap. Time ticking down. We will get a full pace lap, so we really don't have to hurry over to the grid. We can let everybody complete their hot laps, which would mostly, I believe, be the Audis that we're waiting on. And actually, no, I don't see any of the Audis still going, except for Trangarade.
Yeah, and he's already completed both of his time laps. It does look like everyone's pretty much finished up with their qualifying program, although, as you mentioned, still 15 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, and I think those few that are still out there have done their 2 laps, so you're correct. Qualifying is now over. As nobody else can set a time, let's go to the grid. Juan E. Lopez comes in with a splash. Let's see if he can handle it over the course of a race and not just one lap. He's got a 10th over Ardo Iamaki. The Finn completes the front row. And then Keith Ritchie, surprisingly, usually gets most of the poles in this series, is starting no better than third. Rob Olenek, great job by him in recent time. He's found good pace. He'll be starting in fourth. Jamie Hall behind them in fifth. And Fabian Gerber, known for being over in the Lotus 79s, very similar car in the Nissan. He starts sixth. Nicholas Mukanos will be seventh today at the drop of the green, followed by Clayton McLeod in eighth and John Keefe in ninth. Then Martin Craytree, great qualifying by him. Boy, he has improved in the offseason to get a top 10 at the start. Fabian Jungbluth will start 11th, followed by Murtol Shaheen in 12th. Then you've got Dave Peterson in row 8, so row 7, starting in 13th. David Miller starts next to him in 14th. Michael Kopak begins in P15. Tommy Toe starts in the 16th spot, and Rory Collins starts 17th. Then it's Justin Albrecht, who starts at the tail of the Nissans who got a lap time in 18th. A few of the Nissans will start behind him. Xavier Goncalves, Javier Romero, and Udo Stachowiak did not get times. Sam?
Yeah, so let's jump over to the Audis, who will be gridded up right behind the Nissans here. Joni Hagner will start on pole position alongside him. Brian, well, actually, a row behind him, Brian Strovbeck. John Malia will be starting third in class ahead of Ove Chandre. Ben Laughter, well, he lost a position in the points at the end of last season. He'll be hoping to get a good start to this season. He'll be starting fifth alongside Philip Lake. Joku Lascella will be starting behind them ahead of Marco Kika, Riley Thompson and Reed Miller, Brian Shanahan, Stefan Schlatter, Hideki Koivisto starting quite a ways back in the field, Mick Claridge, and the last car to turn the qualifying time was Fabian Hegley. Some Audis did not turn the time in qualifying. Hone Kajanen, Miroslav Dravicek, and Bernard Gortz will round out the 39-car field. The only driver I don't see in the session right now is one of the Nissan drivers, Udo Stachowiak.
Stachowiak, yes.
Stachowiak.
There we go. It's a tough one. We need Sean in here. He's good with those Eastern European names. So as the roof pace car leads them on the long pace lap around here, we are... one of the things I would note is that Joni Kajanen, if you missed the Lotus 49 broadcast, got a second place over there. He's in another vintage car here, but he's going to have a lot harder time to get to the podium, not getting a lap time in here at the start. But Sam, you had some time out in the Nissan, and I have to imagine the turbo lag is kind of notorious in this machine. So where are some of the corners that you've really noticed that might be a problem?
Well, I was struggling with the low-speed terms, Joe, but I don't know how representative my times were, considering the fact that my best time was 4 seconds slower than the slowest time we got set in qualifying by Nissan here. However, it does seem, Joe, that this turn we're looking at right now, this hairpin at the end of Big Bend, does seem to be one of those turns, as do a lot of the corners in the infield, where that rear-wheel drive can spin you out if you're not too cautious on the gas pedal. Now, the track temperature is 98 degrees. It sounds quite high, and for some tracks it is. However, here in Florida, that's actually rather cool compared to the track temperature we're used to seeing here at Sebring, so maybe that'll help some of these drivers out. However, there's a bit of a wind out there at 7 miles an hour. Track temperatures, though, should lead to some good racing today, I would hope. And, of course, these drivers, they have no incident limit, so they can run off it and get away with it. However, if they do end up getting in the wall, they also have no fast repairs.
Some of these cars are, the Nissan in particular, not very good.
Joni Hagner stopped on the side of the track. Our Audi pole sitter right there, and I guess he's going to get his position back. It was just adjusting some settings there.
There we go. Now he weaves his way back to the front. A little bit of a scare for him, but glad to see he'll be able to start the race where his qualifying time deserves. And now you can see the field come down one of the more popular places to pass, Sam, and that is the Ullman Straight. Boy, it just goes on forever.
Until it doesn't. Because when you get to sunset, you're going to want to have that traction under you.
Certainly, and that might be a tall ask as the tires start to go away and the bumps continue to pound away at the car. Right through here, Sunset Bend, under the bridge. And then we're going to give Juan E. Lopez control of the field as the roof pace car peels off into pit lane. Green flies immediately. And Juan does not get the best of jumps over Ardo Ihamaki, but those two are well ahead of both Richie, Hall, and Olenek as they now break into turn one. Cars fanning out. It's very wide. Oh, we got a bit of action back there, but cars get themselves righted. I think that was Krejcik. Let's go to the Audis.
Side by side, Strobbeck really has a run on the outside going into the first corner. Hagner got a nice jump on him, but then Strobbeck just runs around the outside to take the lead. Meanwhile, back up in the Nissans, we already have a car off Nicolas Mucanos.
Problems early on for a few drivers. As we jump back to the GTP class, you can see them already hitting the hairpin. Most everybody getting single file. Bit of a battle farther back in the field between Dave Peterson and Murtul Shaheen as they get themselves sorted out and now finally get single file themselves. But wow, what a start by Strodbeck. And it's not just a jump to the front in the first corner. He's pulling away.
Yeah, I think something's wrong with Hagner, Joe, as we see more trouble up here in GTP. But our pole sitter over in the Audis has now dropped back to third place. He doesn't seem to be up to full speed.
Going to watch on board. Now, these Audis do have a bit of a bug right now. They're going to be something of a handful as they're not driving as they should. The front end of the car not gripping very well in some corners when they hit the curb. So you'll see these drivers tend to try and avoid that. Now, I understood we may have had some action in the GTP that we missed. Trying to get the information on that. Maybe not. Possibly got some wrong information there. So let's jump up to our third place driver, Keith Ritchie. We were surprised at his qualifying effort. Well, his race pace is looking decent. He's challenging Iamaki, but these two certainly not challenging Lopez. Right on board with the Club West driver. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, very early days, so in this race with Lopez leading Iamaki and Ritchie. Up in GTP, back the top three in the Audis right now. Strobbeck ahead of, well, actually the battle is on for second now. Whatever's been bugging Hagner, he seems to have gotten his tires or whatever was bothering him back underneath him. And he now moves his way back up into second by Josh Malia.
That blockbuster car gets returned to third place. Ove Trangrade giving chase. Oh, and another bad moment there for Hagner. And he comes to a halt.
Something's bugging him. Meanwhile,
go ahead.
Fabian Gerber also in trouble. One of our drivers who was running in the top 10 in GTP. I think he's lost several spots this lap, probably had an off. Hagner has got going again.
Checking Fabian to see, and it was in the hairpin actually. Oh, he got ran into by Clayton McLeod big time. We're going to see if we can pull up the replay. So as we watch this, you're going to see him get run into from behind. Here we go. Diatch driver was well ahead, so I probably had no idea that this was coming because here comes Clayton and around he goes. But so I was watching Yoni as we saw him stopped, and it looked like he was cycling through the gears. I wonder if he's got an actual physical problem with his shifter, if maybe he has an H pattern and it's acting up.
definitely a possibility, Joe, but whatever the reason, of course, it's opened the door for some of the other Audi drivers to perhaps get a stronger finish than they were looking at, because now Ove Trantre is in third, but he's only barely holding on to that. Ben Laughter was challenging him for that position earlier on in the lap. Ben Laughter making up some ground early.
You can see behind them, that's La Scala to the inside of Philip Lake. They're still door-to-door coming through Sunset. La Scala to the inside as we ride on board with Lake, and he gets it done on the exit, getting a good hunk of grip on that concrete. Traingrade certainly not giving up on Malia ahead of these two. Still trying to fight for that P2 position.
Mike Kopak just had an off and hairpin. We talked about this hairpin being tricky for these cars with the amount of power they have underneath them. I have a feeling Kopak may have struggled there this lap because he had been running in 8th. He's now down to 12th.
Blake McLeod got to the inside of him. This time made a successful and clean pass, but that was still being thrown off a little bit by the car of McLeod coming through as we watch this battle on screen. Tommy Toe having a little bit of action, of course, with David Miller and Mike Kopak. Whoa, and Kopak with more issues through Jean Debienne, and just ahead of them a spin and an accident as Mukanos and I think that was Toe getting together. It was indeed.
Oh, and more action as they go to avoid them. David Miller spun off course, and Justin Albrecht. We'll catch all this on the replay, but this is causing havoc for a lot of the GTP drivers out on the main straight there.
Miller was slow through the corner, and weirdly, Kopak, trying to get back on the power, spun right into him. You're going to see here, we can't see it from this angle on board, but just tips him around very suddenly.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this means pit road is now a very busy place. A lot of these prototypes with damage. Justin Albrecht in the pits. Xavier Gonzalez pulling in now is Martin. Also, Droney Hagner's also in the pits for these problems. Actually, several Audis in the pits, Joe. Can they not make it to the end on fuel?
No, this should be single.
I haven't seen any incidents in the Audi class, any major incidents, but it's very busy for them right now in the pits.
Possibly missed a big incident earlier on in the race. We'll have to look into that. In the meantime, we've jumped back up towards the front. Keith Ritchie and Ardo Yamaki have not been able to separate despite trying desperately to hold on to the tail of Juan E. Lopez, and not successfully as he's pulled a gap of about 2 seconds. We're wondering about some of the new drivers that have come into here. Seem to have had a few issues as some drivers still trying to adapt to the culture that this series tends to adopt as we look back at Ritchie from Iamaki.
Well, whatever happened over in Audi's, over with the Audi field, hasn't affected the drivers running up front. It's still Brian Strobbeck leading that race ahead of John Malia, Ove Trantre and Ben Laughter. And as a matter of fact, that battle from second to fourth is tightening up. Almost wondering if it's drivers who have been suffering with that iRacing glitch you mentioned at the top of the broadcast.
Yeah, it sounds like from the chat that a number of drivers have had problems with that, and that's what's caused so many DNFs so far. But meanwhile, watching this more successful fight for second place as a pair of Blockbuster cars, the new sponsor on that team. Used to have Windows on there, and then before that it was Commodore. Certainly love their retro liveries, but they've got a sandwich of a Norwegian right smack dab in the middle of them as they hit Sunset once again. Ooh, trying to back up the corner, opens himself up to Laughter, does Trangrade, but he gets the run off of the bend. They're going to stay in order. That is Malia, Trangrade, Laughter, second, third, and fourth.
missing anything up front in the Nissan division right now. Juan Lopez has opened up his lead to 2 seconds, but Iamaki and Richie still close to each other, Joe, as we approach the first quarter of this race being complete, 40 minutes, and we're 10 minutes in.
They're just about the only Nissans close to one another. I'm looking up and down our timing sheet. Everybody's separated except for Murtol Shaheen and Nicholas Mukanos farther back in the order. These two in a battle for a top 10 at the moment. That's Murtol and the red Momo up in the front. Definitely sporting some damage, though. And I think that's hurting him on the straight, because look at the car of Mukanos slip up the inside here into Sunset Bend. Can he get it done as they go side by side? Finds the power successfully. Move Nick Mukanos into 10th. So that settles one battle. Like I said, the only other battle between Iamaki and Richie actually starting to separate a little bit. Richie, confusingly off pace, usually such a dominant force in this series, seems to be out of his element today. I'm not sure what's up with him. Let's jump back to our GTO battle for that second spot, since that's still close, but they've lost one of the competitors. Ben Laughter has started to drop off a little bit, so now it's narrowed down to Trangarade and Malia.
Yeah, Laughter's still within striking range, Joe, and if these two start battling a little bit, or if he catches a good toe on them down one of these long straights, he should be right back up there. Speaking of that battle for second, it might be on in turn 1 here, because Trangarade got a better run out of the final turn, but doesn't do anything about it. Just widening his time in the early stages.
Certainly backed out very early, so he didn't feel very confident maybe about trying that through turn 1. Might get another go at the hairpin. We caught glances as well. We'll keep half an eye on it of Philip Lake and Yuko Lascala fighting for 5th behind them. There you see them working their way through 5 and out into Big Bend. Don't think Lascala is close enough to have a go into the hairpin. In fact, Trangrade could be. You can see at the front of the screen there, but he's not going to elect to go for it yet again. An unusually patient Norwegian up there.
Well, patience is about to have to become a key for even our GTP leaders, because I have a feeling lap traffic is in the not too distant future for Juan Lopez, working his way down into the hairpin right now. Marco Kika.
Sorry, Yoni Hagner was ahead of him. Oh, and Juan Lopez. Lopez off course in the hairpin. How did that happen? This is going to hand it over to Iamaki, and I think he's going to lose the spot to Richie. What happened to Lopez there? Was that traffic, or was that just himself?
No, yeah, he did that all on his own. He still had a little whiles to go before he caught up with Kika.
Looks like, okay, you're going to see on the replay here, he catches a little bit of the curb to the left. Wow. I wouldn't have thought that it would do it, but boy, it upset that Nissan. So down to 3rd goes our pole sitter. Iamaki, with much more experience than Juan in this car, has slotted up into 1st. So can these two hold off Juan Lopez after the speed that he showed early in the race?
See Richie trying to break a draft down there on the Ulman Straight. Doesn't work too well, but it means he's able to maintain 2nd place. And apologise for Miroslav Drivacek. He is actually the last car on the lead lap right now. He hasn't gone the lap down yet. But that's not going to last much longer. Lap traffic about to come into a factor, and we're not even halfway.
Indeed, first up, they're going to get past Juracek. Oh, down to the inside, going to be tight for Lopez. He's given room. Miroslav was watching, so all 3 slip by. Then up next for them, it's going to be Marco Kika. Not going to want to catch him after the hairpin, but I don't think all 3 are going to be able to catch him in time. The brakes early.
Oh, and this is the iRacing bug we're talking about. Look, Joe, at the amount of sparks coming out the back of Kika's Audi there.
Oof, yeah, that is absolutely not normal. Look at that. Wow, looks spectacular, but not fun for Kika. And Lopez already got the bit between his teeth. He took a peek to the inside of Cunningham on Richie. Now they head into Tower. So with 26 minutes left to go on the clock, this might be a little bit of a tall ask, though. If I was going to put anybody who could hold off Juan Lopez in the Nissan GTP, it would probably be Keith Ritchie.
Well, we already saw last lap that Ritchie was racing defensively on down the back straight here. Let's see if he chooses to do that again. Now, it's not... Well, he's holding the outside line here, but if he were to pull to the inside, it's not as much he's trying to break a draft or, in this instance, pass lap traffic. But, sorry, it's not as much as he's trying to block, but it is that he's trying to break a draft. Didn't do as much of it that time, though, but he is able to hold on the second head of Lopez.
You saw a big weave down the front stretch, though. But I don't think Lopez is close enough. A little bit farther back, if we could jump back to the mid-pack, we've got a battle starting to brew with Jungbluth being caught by McLeod and Gerber. Gerber, remember, had that early problem and is trying to climb through the field. He started up in 6th. He's only been able to return to 9th. Gains quite a bit of ground coming through that bumpy turn 1 as he stalks Clayton McLeod. Now they woe up through 3. They're catching this lap traffic we saw a little bit earlier with the leaders.
Yeah, that battle for second is still on. Battle for second in the GTO class between Malia, Chandray, and Laughter, and they're about to have these GTP leaders come by them, and none of these three are going to want to give up that much time.
Certainly, oh, and they're being caught in an absolute horrible spot. Iamaki has to send it in deep through Tower. He sneaks through, puts the car of Laughter between himself and Richie. And it's so marginal for these Audis through Bishop. They're going to have to swing very wide as Trangrade gets caught out. And now he's got Nissans weaving in and out of him.
Oh,
Lopez gets the worst of it.
Yeah, this isn't helping Trangrade either. Look at Laughter all over the back of him.
Malia grinning in his cockpit, having taken advantage of that. Now Trangrade on the back foot as Laughter gets into the slipstream. Through the Almond Straight up to Sunset. Is he going to duck his nose? No, he runs out of track.
Ritchie, as you mentioned, Joe, was able to gain a pretty sizable gap on Lopez through all of that. Meanwhile, our leader in the class, Iamaki, he doesn't have quite as big of a gap on Ritchie.
Yeah, I would have to assume with the huge lap time difference between this Nissan and the Audi that there may be some advantage, you would think, for guys like Ritchie and Iamaki over Lopez, knowing just about what they can get away with.
I think all three of them did a good job to get through that. I mean, that wasn't easy. Those three were all on top of each other. They all caught them at the worst part of the track. It's even though Lopez lost out a bit of time, he's still only a couple of seconds behind, still within striking range.
Certainly has put some distance between them, though Trangrade still hasn't recovered as he is still a whole 2 seconds behind Malia and has Laughter up his tailpipe as they come to Cunningham yet again. They're going to get a small break from the Nissan traffic before Cratery catches them. Up through the curved braking of Tower. Excuse me, as they get it through there, and you can see them giving just a wide berth to that inside curve. Nobody wanting to try and trip up that iRacing bug. Hopefully we'll see that get sorted soon, because it's impressive the racing that they're putting on as we see Craterick, whoa, go a little bit wide. Gathers it back together, but certainly gave a scare to Laughter and gave some distance to Trangrade in the process. How about Jungbluth back there, who we can see in the back of the shot? Coming up through. Is he going to try to send it in? No, he's not. That's Philip Lake that he thought about trying to stick his nose in. He was flashing his lights thought better of it. And that's going to put him back in the clutches of Clayton McLeod once again. Both cars through safe. Philip Blake holding down the fifth spot. Oh. And Fabian Gerber pitting. Again, there are no scheduled stops in this series. Did Gerber get some damage? Checking. You know, he clattered over the curbs through Jean Debienne. So that's all I can see, really, that could have caused him to have to come in like this. Looks like the lead has come back together, so as things yo-yo apart and yo-yo to return, Juan Lopez looking to get that lead back that he lost earlier. They streak by the car of Yoni Hagner, still struggling out there trying to get whatever points he can.
Yeah, Hagner actually just had to spin a little bit ago. It's actually been quite wild for the spectators out here on track, Joe. The cars that ran into difficulty earlier, well, there's been so much attrition towards the tail end of the field. They're still trying to get around here. And there are a lot of drivers spinning and various incidents at the back of the field all the way around the track. Not significant position-wise, unless, of course, one of them were to happen right in front of these leaders. So these leaders are going to have to keep their wits about them when catching up with these guys today. Meanwhile, here comes the battle for second. Richie once again swerving across the front straight, trying to break a draft. Lopez having none of it, though. He's looking down the inside, but Richie carries the speed through the turn.
Lopez starting to turn the heat up. He gets a better run out of turn 1. Down into 3. They almost come together. Gives him just enough space at the apex. Richie not willing to give this one up just yet. Holds on around the outside of 5, and now they hit Big Bend. It's going to switch back an advantage for Richie as he's got the inside, but only just a nose barely alongside Lopez as they come down to the braking for 7. Richie still fending off Juan Lopez, newcomer, having to learn the ropes in this Nissan from the experienced veteran of Keith Ritchie.
And the great news for Iamaki there, of course, is that as these two battle, and they continue to battle and they make contact.
Richie
That's
gets
even
turned
better
around.
news for Iamaki.
And Lopez holds on to the spot. He's not going to give it back. Let's watch it from above. Did he get chopped off? Ooh, a little bit. He had a nose in. A little hard to tell from that angle. We come back live. Be curious to hear each driver's perspective on that one, because that was marginal, but the way they were fighting, he almost had to take that risk, it seemed like, Sam.
Yeah, no, let's not count out Rob back then, the number 6 car in 4th position. We haven't talked a lot about him today, but if things continue to get wild for second, or heck, even if those two cars just have some minor aerodynamic damage, he could try and reel them back in and snatch one of those podium positions from him.
Yeah, Olenek sporting some new colors this season for that Zigzag Racing team. Very reggae-looking colors, actually. I was trying to figure out what exactly that's referencing, or if that's actually a scheme from that era. A lot of drivers tend to love running those retro-era schemes. Not missing anything over in the GTO class. Strodbeck still leading by 2 seconds over Malia. And Malia with another 3 seconds over Trangrade. So that podium has been pretty solid for a while.
Yeah, maybe not for much longer though. Laughter is still close to Chandray, and that we're into the second half of the race now. Meanwhile, there's also actually that side-by-side now for 5th place. Philip Blake and Yoko Lascala on the outside as they head towards the first corner here, but Lascala gonna... yeah, I thought he was gonna back out of it, but no, he's holding strong on the high side there. Oh, and yeah, Lake getting close to the grass's edge, but able to hold on to the position.
Yeah, Lascala really using that 4-wheel drive to his advantage to try and power around with some momentum. Gets close to the tailpipe of Philip Blake through 5, but can't do anything with it. Still, he sets himself up well through Big Bend as he's in the slipstream. Now they come to one of the more popular passing spots, into the hairpin, and he thinks better of it. He's going to stay in line for now. hot action here in the GTO class. We still have 16 minutes left to go, so we are nowhere near the end of this race, although we are past halfway now.
Yeah, I'm curious as Ian Markey comes around to complete lap 13 of what should be about a 22-lap race here today, on what the lap times are from our drivers running in second and third who tangled just a moment ago. They both, actually, they turned a 1 minute 50 and a 1 minute 49 respectively. Lopez and Ritchie are still very competitive, so it looks like they got away without any major damage.
But this definitely hands the advantage to Iamaki, who has a gap, who can deal with traffic as he pleases and not have to worry too hard. Really, the Finn has been just unflappable this whole race. He inherited the lead, but hasn't looked back since then. And as we've seen in races like this, Sam, it's not always who's the fastest, it's who has the least amount of mistakes. Meanwhile, back in 6th in this same class, it's a fight between John Keefe and Fabian Jungbluth. And why don't you toss Clayton McLeod in there for good measure?
Yeah, well, we've already seen Clayton get involved in some argy-bargy early on in the race, with just 15 minutes left on the clock and a three-way battle going on track. Things could still get a little bit interesting in the closing stages here.
Jungbluth slows on the straight and actually lets McLeod through. I was just about to praise both Jungbluth and Keefe, started 11th and 9th respectively. Now up in 6th, and what is 8th now for Jungbluth? He was in 7th. And this has allowed the car of Mukanos to rock up to the back of this trio. To work their way through Jean Debian now, up towards one of the most critical corners of the track, Le Mans. Nobody really able to gain an advantage on one another out of there, so they're just going to stay in line. As you can see them once again snaking back and forth to try and break that draft. Sounds like teammates might be getting close together in the prototype class as well, as Olenek and Hall for 4th place just outside of the podium, getting closer and closer.
Yeah, Hall just ran a 1 minute 49.7. It's not his fastest lap of the race, but it's fairly quick considering a lot of the drivers in prototype, even some of the leaders now flirting with the 1 minute 50s, which Olenek has been doing. And now back to Lake.
Oh, Lake off course in Le Mans, I believe.
And so is Ritchie. And we'll get replays on both of these. Ritchie is off. Here's what happened to Lake.
Just spun by himself. And we might have to back up just a hair for Ritchie.
Ritchie spin. This is it right here. It costs him 2 positions. He had been running in 3rd. He's now down to 5th.
Oh, and it's that curb again. Lopez suffered from it, and now Ritchie. 2 very fast, very consistent drivers. What looks like an incredibly minor thing has cost them dearly. Although Lopez, he's got his eyes on Iamaki ever since he's passed Olenek, and he's cut it down to 2 seconds.
And also the advantage here for Lopez is he doesn't have to worry about Ritchie anymore. He can just worry about Iamaki. Oh, big trouble on the front straight.
What?
That's Kika has flipped over the wall. And that's Juracek involved too.
So it looks like it started with Philip Lake trying to limp his car back. Juracek went wide, slammed into the wall, and then his car just bobbed over to the side unexpectedly, and poor Kika had nowhere to go. Whew. Looking a little bit like Alton Park last season with some of these accidents. Hard attrition in the GTO class, but not so for Brian Strodbeck, who still leads by a handy 3 seconds over Malia. I want to give a little bit of credit to Malia. We really don't pay enough attention to what a solid driver he is. He may not be the fastest out there. I don't believe we've seen him get a win in the GTOs, but boy, he's been getting better and better pace. That blockbuster machine is looking at a podium.
I'll tell you what, we might have two hurricanes colliding here to create a perfect storm with two good two-car battles going on in GTP, now forming into one four-car battle that goes from John Keith in 6th, who has had Clayton McLeod right behind him in 7th. Then also there's been a battle for 8th going on, Nicholas Mukanos holding off Fabian Jungbluth. Well, these two battles are closing in on each other. We could have a four-car pack, and 6th and 9th might not sound like much, but to a driver running in 9th place like Jungbluth is right now, boy, 6th sounds a heck of a lot better than 9th. And with only 10 minutes left in the race, he'll be trying to find a way to get it.
You can never discredit how much it means to be able to see those cars in front of you. It's like a shark smelling blood in the water. So let's see what Jungbluth can do with these three cars. But we really probably need to get our eyes up on the lead, because we've got traffic in front of Iamaki. The former Brian Shanahan, who's going to pull off to the side, but look at the gap between Lopez and Iamaki. Since I last mentioned it, which was just a couple minutes ago, it is now down to 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, I think Rob just had an off. Rob Olmanek back there.
Let's take a look at the replay.
Yeah, it cost him one position to Jamie Hall. Keith Ritchie still behind him.
Through turn 1. Very bumpy through that corner. This maybe happened in turn 3 here. Oh, there it is. Those curbs. These cars do not like the curbs whatsoever. Nice recovery from the zigzag machine. As we come back live, lap traffic in the form of Nissans as Lopez tries desperately to stay out of the side of Tommy Toe. Tommy doing a great job getting his own bear claw for the Backmarkers United meeting. And now we see the weaving. Iamaki back and forth, snaking up the Ullman Straight. He's got to hold on for 9 more minutes. But we've seen the pace of Lopez. In just a matter of laps, he has reeled him in now that he's dispatched Keith Ritchie. Lopez's pace in qualifying a whole 10th faster. He pulled away when he was in clean air in race pace, and now he reaches the rear wing of Iamaki.
Mukanis is off. He had been one of those drivers in that four-way battle we were seeing in the Nissan division. But we're going to maintain an eye on this battle for the lead now. Here we go.
Big defensive move from Iamaki, maybe too defensive as he was way far inside. He gets the power down successfully, though. We look through the 007 cam, back at Lopez. Once again, rookie versus veteran. Lopez back to the racing line, as does Iamaki through Cunningham. Intensifying the pressure. Lopez, known for being fast in the iRacing service, can stick him in just about anything. And today he's proving it one of the more difficult cars to run here on this game. So more traffic.
Yeah, and they'll have to work their way through that. They do that nicely.
That was Luscala.
Yeah, you see on the bottom of your screen there, Ritchie has worked his way back up into 4th place. Jamie Hall currently holding that last podium spot, but who's going to get the top podium spot? Running out of time to find out.
Now down to 7 minutes as the laps tick away. Iamaki so far with a robust defense has managed to hold off Lopez. How much longer can he do it? Whips across the track, trying to break that slipstream. As they come down the front stretch towards turn 1, they're going to catch more traffic. It's Ben Laughter up ahead of him, and in a horrible place, he gets a bump from the back. He actually runs into Laughter. Laughter goes off the track to collect himself. Lopez loses time.
And that will help Chandray hold on to that 3rd and final spot in GTO, because Laughter have been running 4th, not too far behind Chandray there.
So hard to see the car in front of the car, in front of you, as Lopez just found out, especially through these fast corners. The rear wing sticks up so high in these Nissans, and you're sitting oh so low in the car. Oh, they're trying to get past Trangarade, and this is a huge boon to Iamaki as Lopez once again finds traffic working against him. Down to 5 minutes to go next time across the line. They'll get more traffic. This time, it's going to be Hagner and Malia. Malia up to P2. Not really in a battle, though, so shouldn't be able to let them through. Once again, oh, Hagner just in the wrong place at the wrong time for Iamaki. His fellow Finn being held up, and Lopez can't do anything with it through the twisty bits. Now they hit the Ullman straight, and he is right on top of him. Iamaki trying to get everything he can out of the slipstream of the car of Malia. But here comes Lopez. Does he have enough? He's looking to the inside down in the sunset, but he's not close enough.
My math, about 3 laps left to go here. Most of these races have been running 22 laps in length. They're completing lap 19 right now here. And Lopez, as they go 3 wide with lap traffic down the main straight. Iamaki on the inside, Lopez on the high side.
Power move for Lopez as he takes P1 away. It was his best opportunity yet, and he grabs it with both hands. Traffic of Rory Collins pulls to the side, lets them through. It took him a while. The mistake cost him, but he recouped his losses. And Juan Lopez, who started on the pole, returns to that spot.
Hey, you know it's a crazy race though when we have a car sitting on its lid in its pit stall, and boy, the fact. Kiko is still in his pit stall on his roof. I think he's kind of just sitting there chilling for the rest of the race.
Too embarrassed to hit the escape button, I think. He's just going to sit there and stew. Boy, yeah, this was a pretty interesting one. Glad to see Lopez in here as he's shaking up the order at the top of the Nissans. Love to see him back to see if he can continue to hound guys like Iamaki and Richie. How about Jamie Hall, though? What a run by him, looking to get another podium on his stats. And Keith Ritchie's not been able to get by yet. He's run him down, but he's starting to run out of time to try and make this overtake.
Yeah, and also that number 13 we just saw there on Hall's car. Remember, this is an official iRacing series race, so iRacing predicts him to finish 13th pretty much. Because he has a 13 highest I rating. Well, I think he's going to gain some points today there.
He and Iamaki for sure, as Iamaki is ranked 11th, and he's going to get P2. Great job by both drivers. Traffic not playing any favors for Richie. That costs him a bit of time. Not missing anything over the GTOs for all of our fans of the Audis. Strodbeck still leading. Still by about 2.5 seconds. Hasn't really stretched it away. He's just been minding the gap. However, it has separated between Trangrade and Laughter for that final podium position. Almost 3 seconds between those two.
Yeah, Strodbeck, I mean, he didn't qualify on pole. It was Jeremy Hagner. Yeah, but, I mean, Hagner, whatever. Oh, and Tranferay, has he just stopped on the side of the track there? Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Trantere. He just took a tow to the pits.
Wonder if he got the bug as well. I'm not seeing the car dragging. Unusual.
Did he run out of fuel?
I wouldn't think so. He's had enough races by now to know how long it would last. And I would think he would just pull into the pits. He had another lap to come around and get in there.
Now give Laughter the lead of a class.
Or third place in class, we should say.
Third place in class, rather, yeah. 1 lap left to go when Lopez comes across the line. He's working his way down the Ullman straight right now with less than a lap's worth of time on the clock.
A gap of about a second over Iamaki. Now, this is not done because traffic could still come into play. Although he's, oh, well, never mind actually. Brian Shanahan is way ahead of Lopez. He's the next car in line. So I take that back. Clear track ahead of Lopez. They just lapped the car of David Miller, who dutifully gets out of the way. Iamaki has to hope for another mistake like we saw with Lopez on that curb. Certainly had to earn this one, did Juan E. Lopez. It looked like he could maybe romp away with the win. If you're just joining us, despite starting on the pole, this corner here bit him. This time it doesn't. Sent him spinning off track. He slotted down to third, regained his composure, fought very hard along with contact with Keith Ritchie. So he's very satisfied with the move and moved on. Then he hunted down our leader. Had to work incredibly hard to try and pry it out of his hands. The Finn really not willing to let the New Yorker just take it away from him, but eventually, working around the outside of turn one, Juan Lopez took that lead away yet again through Jean Debian, and now 2 corners to go up through Le Mans. Onto the Ullman straight. Pretty much clear from here on out. He could practically cruise to the line. It is now up to 3 seconds over Iamaki. He must have had a mistake that lap. So, the Nissan of Juan Lopez, and the first time we've seen him here on the broadcast races in the Kamel GT Series, is going to take the win here at Sebring for round 1 in Season 2. Iamaki gets a good second, and Hall gets himself a nice third. So let's jump back to Brian Strodbeck. Still managing that gap. It's come down a little bit. It's a 1.5 seconds over Malia. Strodbeck doesn't always get to show up to all the races, being a real-world firefighter. Sometimes he is on call. But today, we get to call him for the win, because as he comes around sunset one last time, Brian Strodbeck returns to the win, to the top of the podium here at Sebring for the GTO class. Malia with a great second, and Ben Lafter, his teammate, bring the blockbuster cars to the top 3. How about Yuko Lascala? Did a great job getting that car into 4th today. Had some nice battles along the way himself. With that, as we get the last of the cars crossing the line, why don't we go to break here on the Global SimRacing Channel? We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. But don't go away, because we'll have all the upcoming races here on screen for GSRC. Welcome back to Sebring International Raceway. We just watched round 1 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and in the end, we saw a newcomer come away with the win, Juan E. Lopez. As I said earlier, he had to work for it, losing the lead from a mistake all on his own, but he recovered and fought valiantly and demoted Ardo Yamaki back to second. Jamie Hall gets a nice third. He managed to hold off Keith Ritchie all the way until the end. Ritchie looked like he could have gotten a podium, but unfortunately, he wound up in 4th today. And Rob Olenek slipped a little bit backwards as well, finishing in 5th position. John Keefe, great run from him, takes a 6th. He's followed by Clayton McLeod, who finished in 7th, and Fabian Jungbluth, who gets an 8th. Myrtle Shaheen was behind them, finishing 9th, with Nicholas Mukanos taking a top 10. Dave Peterson was the last of our cars on the lead lap, taking 11th, with David Miller finishing 12th. Rory Collins coming over from the Lotus 79 in the Lionheart Series, finishing 13th. Tommy Toe finishing 14th, and Martin Krejcik, the last of our finishing Nissans, taking 15th today. Sam?
Yeah, then we get to our top Audi finishers. Brian Strobbeck took a lead at the start of the race, never looked back. John Malia was kind of holding second there on race 1 as well, but always had a lot of pressure from behind. Ben Laughter kind of gifted that third podium position at the end when we saw a stop on track, and that means Lascella also moved up to 4th place. Brian Shanahan ranked with 5th. Trantere was that Audi that stopped on track. He finished 6th overall, ahead of Joni Hagner. Despite having a glitch early on, he was able to rally his way back up to 7th. Miroslav Drivacek finishes right behind him, ahead of Philip Blake and Marco Kika, who finished the race in pit road upside down. Behind him, also drivers who had unfortunate races. We got Mike Kopak and Fabian Gerber there. In the Nissans, Fabian Hegley, Mick Claridge, Hideki Koivisto, and Stephen Slater. They were all in their Audis. Xavier Goncalves, Justin Albrecht, Reed Miller, One Kaitanen, Riley Thompson, Javier Romero, Udo Stachowicz, and Bernard Goretz, who I don't think started the race, all round out the order.
Got a couple drivers waiting to talk to us about how that race was from their perspective. So why don't we go to Ben Laughter, talk to him about their freshly painted cars. Ben, if we could rewind a little bit, the Blockbuster machines seemed to run very well today, taking a double podium.
I see what you did there. Rewind. That's
You're going to get them all season long, buddy.
All season. No, that's pretty funny. Yeah, same exact setup as we ran, I think, 2 seasons ago when I had that really good battle with Philip all race. This race, everyone I think was a little out of sorts, worried about this levitation bug we're experiencing. But I felt like I had a pretty solid race. Had some trouble with Nissans today, but other than that, I really had a lot of fun, as I always do.
Yes, and it seemed like it was kind of involved with the curbs, was it not? Or what? Do you have any idea what causes the bug? Was there any way for you guys to try and avoid it?
Yeah, I think it's tall curbs and grass. If you get off track or if you hit a curb, anything that extends the suspension completely, it's like the car reacts and goes up, but then won't come back down. And it's really inconsistent as to how that actually affects the driving. Sometimes the car feels fine. Sometimes it feels like it's 2 feet off the ground, and you have no tire contact. So you just don't know how it's going to behave, and it's really sketchy.
So obviously we have a new point system this season for the VCR championship. Is this changing how you're going to tackle things? Since I believe it's a little bit more about consistency this season, or is it the same as you guys have always gone for things?
Well, if I understand it correctly, the big thing is just to show up at the GSRC Saturday broadcast and do well on TV. I'm okay at that. So I'm hoping that means well for me. Just race smart, finish races first, and then go to try to finish first.
All right. Well, thanks for coming and talking to us. We're going to return you. So enjoy the rest of the season in those blue and yellow machines.
Thanks so much. Be kind, rewind, guys.
That's been Laughter getting in the spirit of things. We also have Michael Kopak waiting in the wings. I believe Sam's going to be talking about him and his unfortunate DNF today.
Yeah, Mike, unfortunately you weren't able to make it to the finish out there today, but how was your race going until then?
I think Mike might not be aware he's on here. We're going to have to send Mike back as he's busy typing a letter to someone, I guess, about that finish. So hopefully we can get Michael another day. I think he's unfortunately not going to be able to talk to us. Well, that will sadly wrap up our interviews for today. So we're going to thank a few people before we go. Of course, a big thank you goes out to the Kamel GT community for coming back once again. They keep returning, and we keep having them because, boy, we love calling these races. They're unpredictable, they're exciting, and they put on a good show. Of course, thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel. We're also on Facebook at /Global SimRacing Channel. And now we're on Instagram at GSR_Graham. The next race, we're going to Laguna Seca, another place that's sunny, just like here in Florida. That'll be Saturday, March 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races, that'll be 1 p.m. Eastern. I got to update my script here for the new season. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.